All Saints Day. Now, I don't know who declared that or who made that, but yeah, is that right? Today's All Saints Day? Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a carryover from Roman Catholic tradition, but we're all saints, so we might as well celebrate. That's what I say. You know, in the Bible, by the way, when Paul wrote letters to the churches, he wrote to the saints that be at Rome and to the saints that be at Ephesus. And if he were writing to us, he'd say to the saints that be at Alva. And a saint's not a person up on a stained glass window. It just means Christians. The word saint actually means a sanctified one. And now, you know, we don't sanctify ourselves, and we couldn't. You know, how could a person make themselves sanctified enough for God's approval? But we're sanctified by virtue of the fact that we're in connection with, we're in union with Jesus, who is the Holy One of God. I was reading one time in the Old Testament, maybe you've seen this movie about Moses in the Ten Commandments, you know, that movie with Charlton Heston's famous movie, and he sees a burning bush. Of course, it's in the Bible, it's not just a movie. But Moses sees the burning bush, remember that? And he comes up to the burning bush to see what's going on, and he hears a voice out of the burning bush, and the voice says, "Take your shoes off of your feet, for the ground on which you're standing is holy." God's speaking to him out of that burning bush. The ground you're standing on is holy. And so my question is, what did that ground do to get so holy? That's my question. How did that ground become so holy? Well, actually, the truth is the ground didn't do anything. The ground was just common and ordinary, but it was holy by virtue of the fact that the Holy One, God, was present. And wherever He is, He makes it holy. And when He takes up residence in our lives, He makes us holy or sanctified. And so I say that to you just to say that we're the saints of God. The Bible talks about Christians just in general as saints, not because we did anything special or, you know, anything like that. Okay, I'd like to begin today with in the Old Testament, in Isaiah chapter 55 and beginning with verse 6. Isaiah chapter 55, beginning with verse 6. Of course, Isaiah, a very famous prophet, considered to be one of the major prophets. He has a lot to say, predicting the coming of Jesus. But here's an interesting passage that I like. It has some things to say that I want to use to begin with today. Isaiah chapter 55, beginning with verse 6. He says, "Seek ye the Lord while He may be found. Call upon Him while He is near." Good advice, of course. That's good recommendation there. Verse 7, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And let him return to the Lord, and He will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon." Again, very nice thoughts, good information, good instruction. And it tells us something about God, that He's full of mercy and He's full of abundant pardon. Going on, verse 8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord." And by the way, let me stop for a moment and say, when we read in the Old Testament the prophets, a prophet is a person who is a mouthpiece for God, or who speaks for God. And so we see expressions like this, saith the Lord. It's God speaking. It's not Isaiah's opinion. This is God now speaking through the prophet Isaiah, who has it recorded. Either he took it down or a scribe took it down. So these are the words of God through the prophet Isaiah. And that's what it means when it says, saith the Lord. "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord." Verse 9 says, "For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Now, if we stopped reading right there, we would have an idea of God that many people do have, a common conception of God that, well, He's so much higher and so much above us, which it says that He is, of course. And His ways are mysterious and past finding out. And we don't know what God's up to, and he may do this and He may do that. No telling what He's going to do next, and kind of a trickster almost, like He may just throw something in your path to trip you up, and who knows what God's doing. But you see, it doesn't stop right there with Him saying, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, my thoughts than your thoughts," which of course is true. But notice the next verse. He goes on to say, verse 10, "For as the rain cometh down," notice he says the rain comes down, "as the rain comes down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth in bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater." Verse 11 says, "So shall my word be, that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it." Now in verse 11, when he says, "So shall my word be that goes out of my mouth," "so shall" refers back to what he just said. In verse 10 he said, "As the rain comes down and the snow from heaven." Now you see, we just got through reading, he said, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. But then he goes on and says, just like the rain comes down, my word comes down from heaven. And even though my ways are higher than your ways, my thoughts than your thoughts, I'm sending my word down to you, containing my ways and my thoughts. Why does he do that? So we can be participants in what he's doing. He doesn't mean to leave us excluded. You know, a very famous phrase in the Lord's Prayer. We, of course, recite that and say that, and we know what the Lord's Prayer says. One of the things that Jesus says to pray in the Lord's Prayer is, Thy will be done, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And when he says on earth as it is in heaven, it tells me that God's plan or his will or his desire is that things on earth be just like they are in heaven. Or else why would he say on earth as it is in heaven? Now we have no doubt about God's will being perfectly carried out in heaven. No doubt about that. That's why our conception of heaven is that it's a wonderful, perfect place. And of course it is, because there is nothing to conflict with God's will in heaven. But as long as we're here on this earth, there are plenty of things that are conflicting with the will of God. You know, and I hate to have to, always bring this up, but God is not the only active agent in this earth. First of all, there's you and me. I've had these arguments. I don't want to say arguments because I don't like to argue. I'm not an argumentative kind of person. I'm an agreeable person. But sometimes I've had discussions with people that might sound like arguments if you were on the outside. But I've had people disagree with that and say, well, no, everything that happens, God did it. Everything that happens in life, that's God's will. And so my response to that is, well, all right, have you ever done anything wrong? Have you ever committed a sin? And then people will blush, well, I don't want to admit it, but yes, I have. Well, was that God that made you do that or not? Did God did he twist your arm and said, now I'm going to make you commit a sin? No, he didn't do that. God doesn't do that. So if you can understand the fact that you, as an individual, it's possible for you to do things that God didn't make you do and were not his will, you can understand that if you can do that, other people can also do that. So there's many things, many factors at work. Now, I will agree with you, when we all get to heaven, there's nothing going to be going on that's outside the will of God. But when Jesus said, pray thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, he wanted that prayed for a reason, because under ordinary circumstances, it's not necessarily so. Now here, I'm not talking about the Lord's Prayer, but notice what God says, speaking through the prophet Isaiah. My ways are higher than your ways. My thoughts are higher than your thoughts. But, verse 10 says, notice verse 10, as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven. Now he's using those as metaphors for what his word does. The rain comes down from heaven, just like he's saying my word comes down, and my thoughts come down in my word. And notice what happens though. And returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth in bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. And then the next verse says, so shall my word be. See, he says, just like the rain comes down, and notice his language in verse 10, it makes the earth bring forth in bud. Now, is this a lesson on agriculture, or are we talking about something more personal than that? Yes, it's more pertinent and personal than that. God is saying, I send down my word from heaven, and just like the rain and the snow come down from heaven, and they make the earth bring forth in bud with all kinds of good things, my word comes down from heaven. And guess where the earth is that his word lands on? You. You know, we read in the book of Genesis that man's body is formed from the dust of the earth. Anybody ever read that? He's talking about us. We are the earth on which his word lands. And notice what it says, though. His word comes down like the rain and the snow and makes the earth bring forth in bud. See, what I want to talk to you today is about how his word enters into our life and makes our lives transformed into what he wants them to be, into good things. Verse 11, let's read that again. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return to me void. That means empty or unproductive. It shall accomplish that which I please. It shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it.